Physique Mastery Podcast. This is Scott Tuzana along with Brian Cron. Today we are going to be talking about progressive overload. And once again, this topic came from a great conversation, great discussion that we had in the Physique Mastery Movement group coaching area, where Carey, one of our female members in her 40s, been lifting for a while. She was feeling a little defeated one day, just reflecting and realizing that, you know what, I don't remember the last time I've seen the numbers really go up on some of my lifts. I'm not getting any stronger. And Brian, you had just a great comment, a great response back to her, just in regards to that. Like after a few years of lifting under your belt, what gets you bigger, more muscular, when your goals are aesthetic, bodybuilding, what gets you more muscular is usually not adding more weight to the bar all the time. You can only chase those numbers for so long. And then the response right after that is, well, isn't progressive overload the key to gaining more muscle? And that is where we see the common misconception about progressive overload. A lot of people assume that progressive overload just means adding more weight to the bar, and there's a ceiling. Like it gets tougher and tougher to add more weight to it, but progressive overload means so much. There's so many different ways that you can progressively overload on a plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, like when you're starting out and you're new to lifting, probably the most efficient thing you can do is focus on adding more weight and adding more reps to the basic exercises, because that'll definitely get you strong. It'll also get you bigger. I mean, it's probably, you can milk that for at least a year or two, and it's the best type of programming to follow. But it very much hits a plateau, and that's when all of a sudden the gains don't come quite so fast in either channel, and you have to really kind of focus on either getting stronger or getting bigger, because strength becomes much more about technique, about like refining your leverages and stuff like that, whereas getting bigger becomes more just like the training effect, like, you know, causing that muscle damage, getting really good pumps, you know, obviously managing volume. They just become, they're still related, but they're just very much different training outcomes.
Exactly. There's some guys in my gym who they're just solely powerlifting based. Like they love to just focus on their big three lifts. Their physiques haven't really improved that much over the years, but they do keep adding weight to the bar, and a lot of it has to do with just their technique has become more efficient. It's what they're doing all the time. They're doing those lifts constantly. They're periodizing it, so they're not always lifting in the same rep range and all that stuff, but that's their main focus. Whereas bodybuilding, training for aesthetics, physique focused training, it's strength training is just it's a component, but we're looking at a lot of other factors that come into play for improving your physique. So
it's just like if you're really into bringing up your squat, and you're now all of a sudden you've been in a plateau for a while, you just can't add weight to your squat, and you book a consult with a really good strength coach. If he or she knows what they're doing, you can easily bust out of that plateau in just one session. They might correct something with your stance, or, you know, where you're gripping the bar, or how tight you're gripping the bar, whether you're driving your elbows up, all these little nuances. Like they point it out, they correct it, and all of a sudden you got 10, 20 pounds in your squat, and which is amazing. But you haven't added any muscle. Like you're just recruiting what you have better, and that's great. But that's so much of strength training, though, is technique refinement. It's not like you haven't gotten any bigger. Like it'll allow you to get bigger, but. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But you're also using, like, what surprised me when I had one of my powerlifting buddies spend the weekend with me and training with him a lot, and he's seeing how I'm doing bench press, and he's like, the bench press is a whole body movement. Like, you're up there, you're using your glutes, you're using your legs, you're driving everything. Like, no, dude, I just want to hit my chest, man. But for them, like, more efficient to get stronger, it's maximizing all those muscles at once. So.
Oh yeah, like a bench is a better example, because when a powerlifting bench is very much a full body movement. There's glute drive. There's, you know, it's much more of a delt exercise, delts and triceps, than pec. A powerlifting bench press, because you're tucking the elbows. So that's why many powerlifters have these amazing big thick triceps, big delts, and not so great pecs, because they have years of just shortest range of motion possible. Just that type of technique. So it's totally different than a bodybuilding bench.
Definitely. And we do notice programming wise, because a lot of it really boils down to programming. If you're going to get stronger, the times where I think we had maybe 5 months in a row where we were focused, like deadlifts was a component of our programming, and we kept it the same at the beginning of a back workout, 4 to 6 reps, and people just got more and more efficient at that lift. They got better. They were getting stronger on that, even though the majority of our training was kind of hypertrophy focused. And programming where we split up our strength focused workouts and our hypertrophy focused workouts. When we include training like that, people do tend to get, especially a few months in a row, they do tend to get a little bit stronger following sets of that. It's mainly comes down to practice and hitting that same lift in the same kind of rep range. You just get more efficient at it. You do get better at it.
Yeah, like the old saying goes, if you focus on strength, physique will follow. And I think that is only true at the very beginning stages of your weight training journey. Like the first year or two, if you just focus on strength, and the physique is a pleasant outcome of that. But once you get past that kind of that honeymoon phase, then it's much more, frankly, it's much more the reverse. If you focus a lot more on just training physique, you get a little bit stronger. It's just, but it's a much slower process.
Yes.
My point, like if you want to be strong, you do strength training. That's the fastest way. Like if you want to build a bigger, more aesthetic physique, you got to kind of train for that, and just keep your eye on. You shouldn't get weaker.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, but it all depends on programming. How you're programming with physique training. We tend to mix up our program. Like we might do a few months in a row where we're bench pressing in a certain rep range, and then the next time we hit bench, it might be in a higher rep range or a different type of technique. And you're going to see
there's much
change there.
Strength isn't just your 1 rep max. I mean, I think people forget that. Like how strong you are in a given range. If you working in the 8 to 12 rep range and you are using more weights in that range, it might not, like that's an improvement if you're using more weight. It might not transfer to a much better 1 rep max, but really context is everything. It's still strength. So
and now, so basically what we've been talking about lately is, so far in this conversation, is progressive resistance. A progressive overload is so much more than just adding weight to the bar. You can progressively overload, I think, a lot of different volume techniques. Progressively overload through volume is probably one of my favorite ways of progressing. So a lot of our programmings will have a rep range. So your goal is to hit 8 to 12 reps. Well, the first week on the plan, if you hit 8 reps and then the next week you keep the weight the same, but you do 9 reps, you just progress. That's progressive overload. And then 10 reps, 11 reps, 12 reps. And then once you get to that point, you can probably hit a heavier weight for the 8 reps. So there's a lot of, within programming, there's different ways that you can build progressive overload in there. And sets, I know you and I talk a lot about with one-on-one clients where there's a bigger picture where you don't want to change too many things at once. You may start them with 2 sets of an exercise this month, and then your goal after 3-4 weeks, you're going to add go up to 3 sets, and then 4 sets. So adding sets to your training is another way to cause progressive overload. Something we did last year, January through March, was progressively overload by decreasing the rest period. So you're doing the same amount of work in less time. That's overloading your body. And then in the end, we're like, not only were we getting more work done in less time, we'd kind of add more volume to add more exercises in there as well. So there's just so many different ways to progressively overload your body. It's narrow thinking to think you just always have to add weight to the bar. And finding when people get wrapped up in that kind of mindset, that's usually set themselves up for risk of injury. Their form starts to get sloppier. They kind of lose that connection, that fun factor, and it beats them up.
Well, they chase efficiency then. Like if you're again, I use the bench press. If you're trying to bench as much weight as possible, like it's all about maximizing leverages, and that is completely contrary to bodybuilding. Like again, using a bench press, a bodybuilding bench, you want to isolate the pecs, and so that's not putting you in an advantageous position to be using the most weight. because you're keeping your shoulders out of it. Ideally, you're just trying to emphasize the pecs. Again, where with maximal strength, you're trying to be as tight as possible, use the shortest range of motion. Put the load mainly on the shoulders and triceps. That's what gives you the maximum leverage for strength. But that's not the same as maximal pec development. So you have to kind of basically, before you do an exercise, you have to decide, what am I trying to get out of this? Like, what is the outcome? And that will dictate how you lift, and certainly should have dictated the program in the first place.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the further along we are in our training and everything, if you have it set in stone that you have to progress, adding more weight to the bar all the time, it's definitely, there's so many other factors in play as well. Like we've become more intuitive with our training where fuck, you have a day. Like today, I ate a whole bunch of mini chocolate bars over the weekend. I overfed over the weekend. So I put that extra energy to good use. I had a great sleep last night. No stress. I walked into the gym ready to attack that frickin' bar. 2 weeks ago, there's no way I could have did what I did today. If it was set in my programming, there's no way I could have hit it. So so many factors into play that you got to pay attention to. Not get down on yourself if you don't see that weight go up.
Oh, absolutely. It all depends what you're training for and what your overall context is. And when you have those good days where you feel good like that, chase it a bit. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
I miss those days. I miss those good days. Yeah.
Good sleep days. Good luck, man. Good luck. It'll still be a little while before you get those real good sleep days. All right, dude. Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much it. The main thing that we really wanted to drive home is that just don't get caught up in thinking that progressive overload, which is the key to building more muscle. Don't get caught up in misinterpreting it as progressive resistance. There's so many different ways that you can overload with your training. Smart programming is definitely the key. So hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you guys next time in another episode of the Physique Mastery Podcast.
See you.